Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Ghosts of Bacon. I'm your host, Jake. Um, Great to see a lot of people are popping in here live. Hey, Penn, thanks for coming, sis. Um, Carolyn, hi. Good to see you. Stephanie, always a pleasure. Oh, good. Uh, Nice to see you. It's a pleasant surprise. So, thanks for joining me this evening. And I'm going to wait for a few other people to kind of file in. Usually, we have a handful of the usual suspects, usual crowd coming in. And so tonight, a couple of things, well, I guess you'd call it housekeeping sort of things. First of all, I want to thank my generous hosts over at the Science Cafe. This is a presentation that is sponsored by Clarkson and St. Lawrence Universities and the science professors over there. Hey, Amy. Hi, Linda. Jason, glad you could make it. I was actually just getting ready to give you a shout out, my friend. So I was just talking about the Science Cafe event last Wednesday, and I want to say a big thanks to both Alex and Dan. You guys were very generous with your time. And it was really very gratifying for me to have a group of academics, not just hear me out and listen to my discoveries, but to be so incredibly supportive and enthusiastic about what we've done here at Ghosts of Bacon. That was extremely gratifying and very, very assuring, and I really appreciate it. And Jason, thank you for showing up. And I just received an email from the host Alex, and he had also commented on some of your comments in the chat, and how helpful he thought that was that you were there. And I agree. I really appreciate your support, my friend. That was really great. So yeah, very smart group of people there, Jason, for sure. And it was fun. The idea that, and this is, something new, gang, we could be having a bit of a collaboration, myself with one of the professors over at St. Lawrence University in here in Northern New York. He actually has a program he's created. It's a artificial intelligence program that can actually compare the writing styles of different texts and determine whether or not a specific individual wrote, say, Shakespeare. And so we're going to be taking a look at you know items from the first folio along with some of Sir Francis Bacon's writings, and see if we can't find a match. And so that's really exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, Tom, glad you could make it. Brenda, welcome to the show. So, and hello from Eastern Canada. Earth is a school. I agree, it is a school. 100%, my friend. Welcome. And there's the awoken one. How we doing? Great to great to see you. So, tonight's show is kind of been a long time in the making. To be honest, I've been putting it off for quite some time, and I really felt that now is time. Last week, I was over at what's called the Beehive at sirbacon.org. And the Beehive is a forum. A lot of great people are posting there, a lot of great information. I just actually one of the authors posted on there his book, Ryan Murtha. It's called The Precious Gem of Hidden Literature. If you can see that there. Great book, Ryan. It looks great. Remember, I posted this on the forums. It's just really well done. I haven't had a chance to really I've only read the intro so far, but I love what you did here. And so I want to say, give you a big shout out, gang. If you're interested in, just a really nice piece of work here, Ryan's book, The Precious Gem of Hidden Literature, really does kind of spell out, a lot of what I do on this show in terms of pointing out all of, some of these hidden works by Sir Francis Bacon. And Ryan does a good job of just kind of pointing out the parallels between what we know Bacon wrote along with what we believe he wrote. And it's just a really neat uh, presentation of material. Jan, hi, glad you could join us. Thanks for coming. So, and along that note, I was over at the Beehive, and there was a conversation about the Prince Tudor theory. Now, that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And I posted, and like I say, and all of you who are members of the Ghosts of Bacon group, you know that I'm not a big Facebook guy. I don't get online a lot unless I'm just doing work. And so, even though I created the Facebook group, the Ghosts of Bacon, I don't contribute to it as much as I should, and I apologize for that. Um, and Mary, hey, glad you could join us. Thanks for coming. So the thing is that when I go to sirbacon.org and the Beehive, I check in, I read people's posts, and if there's something that I feel I can add to the conversation, I do. But what I didn't realize was that my comment that Francis Bacon's real name, that he was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and Francis II, would cause such a little poop storm in a sense. And so, I want to publicly apologize to a couple of people over there that, these are seasoned veterans when it comes to Bacon research. And, I don't know if my post offended them or not, but the reaction was certainly rather powerful and strong. And so, listen, guys, I meant no offense to you and your work. And that is your house as I see it. And so, I apologize for that. But this podcast, this is my house. And so tonight, I'm going to bring it to you. Why the Prince Tudor theory is a bunch of nonsense. And I'm saying that as someone Amy, truer words never spoken, my friend. Yeah, social media is definitely a breeding ground for poop storms, without a doubt. So here's the thing. When I say this as someone who used to be an advocate of the Prince Tudor theory. I'm going to explain what that is for those of you who aren't familiar with what the Prince Tudor theory is. I'm going to go over it. I'm going to talk about its origins, where it started, how it began, and then basically show the difference between what I do and have done and the Prince Tudor theory. So yes, Jan, I'm going to let it fly. I love you guys. You're just the best. All right, so let me go ahead and share a little tab with you guys here. Boom. Okay, so all right, I'm double checking. I'm getting back over here in StreamYard so I can make sure that my presentation is actually showing this week, not like that last time. So here we go, gang. Tonight I say goodnight, sweet Prince Tudor, because Francis Bacon was the Dauphin, and he was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and the author of Shakespeare's plays. Now, the Prince Tudor theory, it's also called the Tudor Rose theory, basically involves Edward de Vere and Queen Elizabeth. Now, a lot of people originally claimed that Edward de Vere wrote Shakespeare. He was the original Prince Tudor theory. And then there's also, and that was the reason for him using the pen name of Shakespeare. But along with this is also that perhaps Edward de Vere was the secret father of Francis Bacon. And I'm sorry, that's a typo. Not Edward de Vere, but Robert Devereux, second Earl of Essex. And so all of these names have been thrown out there as Prince Tudor, and that they wrote Shakespeare. Now, it all comes from a couple of people named Orville Ward Owen and Elizabeth Wells Gallup. And right to this day, Baconians really revere Elizabeth Wells Gallup for a variety of reasons. I mean, she did a lot of really great work, but she's, unfortunately, right at the very center of this little storm. The problem is that their work was completely debunked, and this is something that has gone unacknowledged in Baconian circles for quite some time. So tonight, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to spell it out, and here's why their work was debunked. And so there's a very good reason for that. It's because it was crap. Okay, I'm sorry, but there's going to be some truth bombs dropped tonight. So the problem is that this Prince Tudor theory is still favored by Baconians. They want to believe very strongly that Queen Elizabeth was the mother of Francis Bacon, and then he secretly wrote the works of Shakespeare. So that's, in a nutshell, is the Prince Tudor theory in the Baconian sense. Now, there are a lot of reasons why this doesn't track and it doesn't make sense in history when you consider how often Francis Bacon, wanted to work in the Elizabethan court and was passed over. It seems if he was actually her son, she would have treated him like, oh, I don't know, Robert Devereux, second Earl of Essex, which she did treat well. That was her son. So I'm going to go into what I did and what I'm currently doing here. I don't have a theory, and this is something that, by the way, everyone, if I lose my filter a couple of times here this evening, I'm just going to apologize in advance. But this is something that pisses me off. Okay, I'm not a theorist. I don't have a theory. And people have private messaged me and said that I don't stress this enough, and you're right. I don't want to come off as if I'm bragging, and I definitely don't want to come off as being an arrogant snot. But I'm not a theorist. I made a discovery. I'm just going to say it. This is a discovery of a message, multiple messages, and so to pass this off as if it's just another theory that I'm coming up with and not fleshing out the details. This flat out is an explicit message from Sir Francis Bacon. So when I made this discovery, and those of you who are, regular viewers of the podcast know what that discovery was, that mainly that Francis Bacon wrote Shakespeare, but most importantly, and what he felt, I think, was most important to him was who his true parents were. Mary, Queen of Scots, and Francis II. Now, when I read those messages, I instantly understood the implications of this in terms of Baconian research, in terms of the Prince Tudor theory, and all of its adherents and the people who promote this idea. Okay, I knew that this was going to be problematic from the start, but the difference is this time, this type of message using a scientific method and Bacon's inductive reasoning allowed me to uncover these messages. And I'm going to use this word because someone asked me what I mean by explicit on those forums. I use the word explicit the same way everyone else does. Explicit has an explicit denotation or definition. And when I say that these messages are explicit, they come right out and they clearly state who his parents are. So what I have here is nothing less than a document written by Sir Francis Bacon stating who his parents are, stating explicitly that his parents were Mary, Queen of Scots, and Francis II. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to keep repeating it so that you know that I'm not going away. This document spells out his authorship of the works of Shakespeare and what his true heritage was. And so what I did was I had to write a book about it. Okay, that's the only way to get this documented in terms of Bacon's document. So and so, yeah, exactly, Stephanie. And thanks, Tom. 100%, but still, you find that in certain circles, the truth is unpopular. And you know what? Yeah, Barbara, uh, that's what we're hoping. That actually came out in the Science Cafe the other evening, my presentation there, where we were talking about the possibility of finding, you know, uh, descendants and doing some DNA testing and finding out what they were. And so, Jan, yeah, 100%. The question is, did Bacon actually have knowledge of who his birth parents were? And do you know who told him? That's a great. I don't know who told him. I would imagine that at a certain age, I think that Lady Anne Bacon would have told him the truth a lot, and I think that Queen Elizabeth probably would have told him the truth, but she would have done it in such a way as to put the fear of God into him, saying, "Hey, listen, you little snot, I'm queen, and don't you dare try to mess with that." Um, so, uh, yeah, I don't know exactly who told, but I would have to assume. I I think the most likely person would have been Lady Anne Bacon, who would have told him. But yes, he did know who they were, and and he did, as much as Sir Francis Bacon could. I think he did hold a little bit of a grudge against Mary Queen of Scots for basically giving away his birthright, which is what she did. So moving on, um, one of the responses to my post was that I couldn't use a tiny bit of cipher evidence to say that this is true, and so here's my rebuttal. Okay, listen to this. A little more than a tiny bit of cipher evidence. So, um, anyway, that is called a straw man fallacy. You're saying that everything that I've found, and by the way, what I show on this show, and I'm going to get into that in a second, and actually what I put in this book is quite literally the tip of the iceberg of all the information I have now found. Okay, the book is over 365 pages long, and it's chock full of all of the cipher evidence I've uncovered. To say that it's a tiny bit of cipher evidence is a straw man fallacy, where you're building a straw man that you can easily dismiss. It's not a tiny bit of cipher evidence, not by any stretch. And everything that I've found since then, well, the original discovery pales in comparison to all of the newest ones. So I can't wait to bring that out in the next book. So this show has certain limitations. Obviously, I try to keep it down to an hour, um, and be respectful of your time. They don't want to spend the entire evening here on YouTube or Facebook. Um, and so, as such, I have a limited amount of time where I can give you a small slice. And so, if I were to lay out all of the information in this book, it would be an all day marathon. And so, what I'm telling all of you, Prince Tudor theorists, come at me. I've been trying to get you to look at this information. When I joined the Sir Francis Bacon Society, the chairperson, Susan, was just absolutely a delight, a wonderful person. Um, really tried to encourage others to take a look at my book, read it, give me some feedback, and very few people have taken up the challenge. And so this, I'm telling you that this is a discovery, and this is how it's going to work from here on out, because this is how scientific discourse works. So don't just throw, and I'm going to talk about what not to do and then what to do if you're going to come at me with, this sort of pseudo argumentation. Make sure it's a good one, because if you just spam a list of links of information that chances are I'm already familiar with, as if I didn't know that those books existed. For example, for those interested in Lord Bacon's royal birth, I have included the following bibliography. This is not the right way to do it. Okay. I already knew about these books. And by the way, gang, this post goes on for pages. Okay. As if might makes right. If I spam you with enough links, you're going to be overwhelmed with, oh, look at all of this information that says that I'm wrong. Well, you know what that is? That's a great big echo chamber. It's a great big echo chamber of a bunch of people who got it wrong, and they all agree with each other. That does nothing in terms of, uh, you know, trying to make me not uh, post the truth. So, the only piece of evidence that one person, former member of the Ghosts of Bacon group, um, stated was all based on rumor, speculation, and innuendo. And there is a diary entry about Francis II, King of France, that his uh, sexual organs were not functional, according to a lady in waiting of Catherine de Medici, a member of Catherine de Medici's court. And so this was based on rumor that she recorded in her diary. Meanwhile, Mary had announced to the court on at least two occasions that was actually recorded in history that she was pregnant and with child. So, and here is Mary, Queen of Scots, who would have been watched like a hawk by Catherine de Medici's people to make sure that she didn't do anything untoward. Um, and so for her to announce, hey, guess what? Francis and I are having a baby a couple of times means that, well, his stuff worked. So, what do we believe? The lady in waiting of Catherine de Medici, who despised Mary and wanted to discredit any idea or notion that she had a right to that throne, or that she had a baby that had a right to that throne. Uh, or are we going to believe Mary's announcements to the courts? Well, after having made the discovery of these cipher texts, I now know who we should believe. Now, if we're following the scientific method, um, what you should do if you want to try to discredit the work I've done, or if you want to promote your own work, the first thing you're going to have to do is analyze my methodology and find a flaw. Please do. You're going to have to look at it first, though. Or here's what else you would have to do. You're going to have to produce your own overwhelming evidence. Where's your document that says that Elizabeth was the mother of Francis Bacon? You don't have one. And so when we look at, let me go back here. And this is the other piece of evidence that was presented. So if you're going to present your evidence, have an explanation. For example, in this case, here you see this is I think this is Henry the Fourth, an excerpt from Henry the Fourth. This is Act 2, Scene 4, if I remember correctly. And someone has overlaid, looks like the constellation of Cepheus and Cassiopeia here with this W, and they line up with the W's. It's really clever work. I really don't know what the methodology here was. I don't know the purpose of placing Cepheus, or this is called the House of Solomon, at the center of Cepheus. And so I don't know what the purpose was, or what indications would have led someone to overlay this area of the sky with this area of this particular text. But apparently the message says, I am Prince Francis Bacon. Well, okay. That tracks along with exactly what I'm saying. He was a prince. So not really sure what I was supposed to be looking at here, but what I'm saying is I have the document written by Sir Francis Bacon, and he explicitly states that he used the name Shakespeare. He explicitly states that his mother was Mary, Queen of Scots, and his father was Francis II. I have the document. It's right there. You can see it right here on the screen. This plaque contains multiple ciphers with those specific messages in it. So where's your evidence? You need to produce it now. Okay. So this idea of Francis Bacon as Prince Tudor, where did this even come from? Well, you're not going to believe this. This guy named Orville Ward Owen, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before. Um, he wrote a book called Sir Francis Bacon's Cipher Story, and it basically was produced. This is the origin of this idea that Bacon was Elizabeth's son. It was based on this little apparatus here called he called a cipher wheel. Basically, he pasted the first folio and the works of Sir Francis Bacon on these giant rolls, and then he turned these wheels, and supposedly certain words were highlighted, which they then typed out on the typewriter here. That was his methodology. He had a close friend named Dr. Frederick Mann. He wrote a critique of him, saying that it's ludicrous that Sir Francis Bacon created all of the works of the greatest plays in English history. Really, as the greatness of the plays was secondary to the secret message that he was Elizabeth's son, which I would be in complete agreement. Now, on his deathbed, Orville Ward Owen made the statement that he regretted every minute of delving into the Bacon ciphers, and he wished he hadn't wasted his life and his career on it, and that it was a huge mistake. And that his assistant, Elizabeth Wells Gallup, decided to carry out his work after he died. So I guess she didn't take his warning very seriously. So that's this ludicrous machine is the source of this message. Now, there's more evidence that they believe that Bacon was the Prince Tudor. And multiple books, websites, articles. I mean, you just saw a listing of them there in the previous screen and from the screenshot. And they all point to all of these circumstances and circumstantial evidence, which great. One of them is always pointed out is this pregnancy portrait of Queen Elizabeth. Now, she was supposed to be the Virgin Queen, and everyone says this is a portrait of her pregnant. Okay, maybe she's pregnant there. Can't really tell. I don't know if you can, but there's no doubt in my mind that she had children. I know for a fact that, she was the mother of Robert Devereux for sure. But can you see Francis Bacon anywhere in this portrait? I mean, is there a window into her belly and little baby Bacon's waving there? It'd be a womb with a view. I love that joke. Sorry. So I don't see Francis anywhere there. And what about maybe she was pregnant with Mary Sidney? The timeline fits along the same timeline as Francis Bacon. Mary Sidney was born in October. Francis was born in January. Maybe Mary Sidney was Queen Elizabeth's illegitimate child. Pure speculation. I'm just making stuff up. I don't know. The fact is, if she was pregnant, she could have been pregnant with anyone. And there's no legitimate reason to think it would be Francis Bacon. And yet this is always pointed at as evidence of the Prince Tudor theory being valid. And again, like I said, second Earl of Essex, Robert Devereux, was her son. And you could see how they behave towards each other in history. Very, very different than Francis and Elizabeth. So getting back to Riverbank Laboratories and this lady, this is Wells Gallup here, Elizabeth Wells Gallup. This guy, he was a millionaire. I mentioned him in a previous podcast, George Fabian. He called himself Colonel, even though he was never in the military. But when you're a millionaire, you can call yourself whatever you want, I guess. He hired Elizabeth Wells Gallup because of her association with Owen. And basically, she headed up the team of cryptologists because George Fabian had an interest in showing that Francis Bacon wrote Shakespeare. And so she was the one leading the charge. And to that end, she had, I believe Elizabeth's name was Smith at the time, had hired Elizabeth and later William Friedman, who originally wasn't even a cryptologist, but discovered that he had a really great talent in that area. These two actually met and later married while working at Riverbank Laboratories, working on the Bacon and Shakespeare question. And then war broke out, and the U.S. government shows up at Riverbank Laboratories and said, you guys have cryptologists, right? Yeah, well, we need them. And so Elizabeth and William Friedman went to work for the government at that point. And so here you can see them in later years after the retirement. And as I've said in previous podcasts, William Friedman was the father of the National Security Agency, the NSA here in the States. And this husband and wife team, basically were instrumental in winning World War II. Okay. These are the two foremost experts in cryptanalysis and cryptology in the country at the time. And so what they did was after they retired, they returned to their original interest of the works of Shakespeare, and they started to analyze it themselves. And instead of, really digging in and seeing if there were ciphers there, instead, what they did was they looked at all of the books that were written about ciphers appearing in the first folio of Shakespeare. And they reviewed every single one of these books. And it had to do, they basically read Owen's book, or they read Gallup's book, Ignatius Donnelly's book, all of them. And there were several others. And at the end of all of this, they issued the statement and wrote a book about it, that all of these books, all of these people, that there was no scientific basis or evidence for ciphers appearing in the first folio, at least that any of these writers had found. Okay. At no point did William and Elizabeth Friedman say that there weren't any ciphers in the first folio. They didn't say that Bacon didn't write Shakespeare. They never, you go on every encyclopedia online and they all say that. It's not true. They never explicitly said that in their book. That what they said was none of these writers found scientific evidence for a cipher. Their methodology was not scientific. They were grasping at straws, basically. So they were debunked by the foremost experts in cryptology in the country. So the very basis of the Prince Tudor theory, based upon Owen's work and then carried on through Gallup's work and so on, and repeated by others, was all based on bad cryptology. And like I said, they did not say that Bacon didn't write it. That's not something that was a part of it. So here we have, this brings us to our central problem here. Who do you believe? We can choose to believe a group who refuses to accept the truth that all of this information was debunked, and they continue to do so right to this day. That's what people who adhere to the Prince Tudor theory do. Or we can choose to believe the experts in cryptology. I choose the latter, and I also followed their advice on how to deal with ciphers. They're not out. After all, like I said, these are the people who won World War II. Okay. Now, they were originally interested in trying to find the evidence for the cipher. Okay. And so, and just like myself, originally I wanted to find evidence for the Prince Tudor theory. And what ended up happening was quite the opposite. I found evidence. I made a discovery that disproves it. That's the bottom line. And so the final message here that they had was that this cryptology work that all of these people claimed they did was bunk. It was garbage. So the original Prince Tudor theory was based on really bad cryptography and has been debunked and disproven. So the fact that people continue to hold on to this idea is the reason, if you remember a few episodes back, where's my book? I talked about the David Kahn book. He wrote an entire chapter where he was calling Baconians flat earthers, all kinds of nasty stuff. It was pure propaganda, anti-Baconian propaganda. But that's the reason why he's writing that. Okay. So what happens is people hold on to this idea, even though it's been, and this is why he says that all Baconians, and he paints us all in a very broad brush, are like those people who continue to believe that they're in an insane asylum, and continue to believe that they are Napoleon, even though they're being shown pictures of his funeral and everything else. And so I think we need to stop doing that. So at some point, people have to accept the truth. And I suspect that because of the work that I've done, and I actually have demonstrated here on this podcast, the work that, my friend Jason, you're watching, Jason Mercer, all of the stuff, amazing stuff he's found. William Russell, my friend in England, who is sending me stuff on a daily basis that he keeps finding. It's just amazing, his discoveries. I'm going to have him on the podcast at some point. There's so many people that we just keep finding these messages. There are tons of messages in Shakespeare, in the sonnets, in the King James Bible, in the plaque, that reference Bacon as king, or Rex Bacon, reference him as a prince. I'm sure that what happened was each of those writers saw that message, and the very first thing they did was come to the faulty conclusion of, oh, well, if he's a prince, his parents must be royal. Oh, there's only one queen, Queen Elizabeth I. She's queen. She has to be his mother, when in fact there was another queen at the time, and people tend to forget Mary, Queen of Scots. So I think they misinterpreted that, and that falsehood has been circulating ever since. So this is where we are now, gang. I'm not a theorist. I made a discovery and I've announced it, and I'm not going to apologize to the Prince Tudor theorists anymore. I actually have the message from Sir Francis Bacon saying who his parents are. He does confirm his authorship of the works of Shakespeare. And listen, Baconians, take that as the good news, right? We've been saying all along that Sir Francis Bacon wrote the works of Shakespeare. Well, maybe that means the good news. We can say goodbye, Stratfordians, goodbye, Oxfordians, the people who think that the actor William Shakespeare wrote it, or that Edward de Vere wrote it, again, without any firm evidence. But this is not going to work. It's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to say goodbye to the Stratfordians, Oxfordians. The reason being is that they are using the same fallacies of logic and the same tired arguments that the Prince Tudor theorists are using. The problem is we Baconians ourselves, I think. If you are going to continue to hold on to a theory just because you like it, at the risk of losing sight of what we all want, which is to prove definitively that Bacon wrote Shakespeare, they would rather hold on to that theory than embrace the facts and the truth. So again, I'm asking you, where is your document stating that Elizabeth is Bacon's mother? It doesn't exist. That's how I know you don't have one. So because of the scientific method, because if we are going to adhere to the rules of lively debate and science and scientific inquiry, the onus now is on you. Okay, I did my job. Okay, and it's not a tiny bit of Cipher evidence. I did my job. I uncovered the document. I decrypted it for you. And so now, if you're going to try to claim that Elizabeth still was his mother, you better have some serious evidence to back it up. So here's the thing. When I did this, and I can understand where this would come from on the Beehive, actually. I certainly am not presumptuous enough to believe that, all of a sudden I go, ta-da, here we go. Here's the truth. Everyone's going to accept it. I know better than that. But to simply come back at me with the same links and books that I'm well aware of, and saying that that's your evidence, when in fact it's just a bunch of circumstantial evidence and theories tying it all together. I am not going to. I'm not going to sit here and take it when people try to use a straw man fallacy with me, or make bare assertions of that. Well, that just can't be true. I'm not going anywhere. Ciphers do contain the truth. I did a podcast on that a few weeks ago of why ciphers always contain truth, and this one is telling us the truth, and it's an actual document. So, while everyone's looking for smoking gun evidence of who wrote Shakespeare, and as far as I'm concerned, Bacon produced that evidence, and he left it there for us to find. And I decrypted it. I'm still decrypting it, by the way, because there are still messages there that uh, I haven't shared yet. And I do want to point out that this is a discovery and not a theory, while the Prince Tudor theorists only have a theory. So as soon as you discover a document, get a hold of me. The best part of what I've discovered here is that it's reproducible. Like I said, there are other people who are using this information and making their own discoveries now. And that is one of the tenets of the scientific method. It has to be not just, you can't just do the experiment and have it turn out once. It has to be reproducible. And we are constantly getting new results every day. And so at this point, people are just ignoring it. But ignoring it is not going to make it less true. It's not going to make it go away, and I'm certainly not going away. So there you have it. Good night, sweet Prince Tudor. So going to kind of, once I got off of my rant there, gang, I lost track of comments here. Yeah. So cue rim shot, Jeff. Nice. I wished I had seen that. I need to get some sound effects here. My little podcast station. I think I have some. Oh, I don't think that was right. That was not a rim shot. Yeah, Stephanie, you and I talked about this before. That's just it. You have to absolutely keep your mind open, but you have to remember it's like one of the things that I'm when you first approached me about that, and we were chatting on Messenger. Um, the fact that the cipher portion of her work was debunked. But that's the important part. That doesn't mean that everything she wrote was erroneous or wrong. Okay, so that's one of the things that I really try to point out to people. Okay, yeah, so she got that part of it wrong, but there had to be parts of it that she got right because, like I said, there were her methodologies. Yeah, they weren't scientific. Okay, they weren't standard. Um, but some of her insights, especially about Sir Francis Bacon, were actually spot on. So, yeah, Colonel Sanders wasn't a real colonel either. That's a fact, Jenny. So, well, Woken One, isn't that really it? It's like having the world's best experts looking at ancient Egypt drawings and none of them actually understanding the language. You know, it- when we look at these things from history, and the more I delve into this and the more I look into it, oftentimes what we're looking at is agreed upon history, where historians say, "Oh, yeah, okay, I agree that that's probably how it happened." Um, when we end up really looking at some of these facts that are now coming out of the cipher work surrounding Sir Francis Bacon, Anthony Bacon, Sir Walter Raleigh, and others, um, they kind of fly in the face of what we think we know. And like I said, there are so many discoveries that have been made in the last year. that obviously I just simply uh, I don't care to share them anytime soon until I have all of my ducks in a row here because they're really shocking, frankly. And so, yeah, Jan, this is something that people have talked about for years. Disbelief that the many pregnancies of Mary and Elizabeth information didn't leak out of the castles. People needed money; they could charge a pretty penny for the information. Yeah, you're right. Um, but on a flip side, it was also they were living in a time of constant fear as well. Um, any kind of uh, perceived treason was punishable by death. And so I think that I think that that that's an aspect that we have to also think of. But yeah, you're right. You would think that um, it's and I think that's why those rumors did persist. There were rumors were rampant in London regarding Elizabeth and her children. Hey, Patty, glad you can make it. So and that's just it, Amy. When I first published the book, and it's in my book where I state, "Hey, please go through this and check it over. If you see a flaw with my methodology, let me know." Um, and that's the whole thing of scientific inquiry. You have to uh, publish it, get it out there for others to look at, so that they can review it and evaluate its worth. Um, Absolutely. Well, you guys, just so many great questions. Yeah, Jan. And even though I think that's one of the greatest strengths of my book, it's also its biggest weakness. Um, it's death by cipher. I mean, I wanted to make sure that it was very transparent in terms of the methodologies I used. Every other book I've ever read from Ignatius Donnelly to Gallup and others, the way they claim that they found the message, it's never clear. It's never clear. And So I wanted to make sure that that was not the case in my book. I really showed the work. So I mean, it's like you said, you have to show how you got the answer. And Jason, all right, with some cipher wizardry here. Elizabeth is 84 simple, 141 reverse, and 240 in case cipher. I've never seen these in my work, never in the geometry that repeats itself in the symbols created. You got that right, my friend. Um, Elizabeth's numbers just simply don't appear in any of the cipher work that we're all doing. 100%. And that's something that a lot of people, it might surprise people because I never really talked about it here on the show. Jason, thank you for bringing that up um, because one of the things that we do, and Jason's really well aware of this, but we actually calculate the numbers for other names like Elizabeth just in case they show up. And so her numbers never appear. And if she were integral to this entire process, then her cipher signatures would be showing up frequently, but they don't. The only ones that show up are Mary's and Francis II. So yeah. Oh, okay. I'm hoping that you wrote this after I announced that there is a math professor at St. Lawrence University who's going to do exactly that. I don't know if he's going to get into the multiverse, but oh, hey, Sharon, glad you could join us. Just saw your name here as I'm going through. Um, oh, Zantlo, my friend. All right. Yeah, can you believe that? This is such a crazy story, gang, with the second Earl of Essex, Robert Devereux. He committed treason by storming the court. Basically, he Um, Elizabeth was listening to her advisors, in particular, mostly Walter Raleigh, and Essex felt that she was basically being manipulated by them, her other advisors, and wasn't listening to him enough. And there are other elements involved there too. Um, but I think I've uncovered the real reason behind the Essex Rebellion, which, after my next book comes out, I'll be able to go into that in some detail. Oh, sure, Sharon. Thank you. Uh, the name of my next book is The Ghosts of Bacon, just like the name of the podcast and the Facebook group. My first book is The Holy Trinity Decryption. I just dropped it on the floor. The big thud, because it's a tiny bit of cipher evidence here. The Holy Trinity Decryption. And my second book was called The Oak Island Treasure Map. There will be a second edition to that as well. I think I have some material to add into it, those of you who are Oak Island fans. So, oh yeah. Hey, Scott, good to see you, my friend. Thanks so much. You know, when you look at Bacon's relationship with King James, all of a sudden, that's exactly it. Scott says, I believe Bacon was knighted by King James and he received a lot of favor from him. 100%. All of his titles were given to him by James the First. He didn't receive anything from Elizabeth, uh, which again is more evidence against this idea of the Prince Tudor theory. And so, I think that what you say there is spot on, and it's not until James becomes king that Bacon began to rise in status. So very true. Um, oh, Jan, you're not alone there, especially when I kind of get into all of the numbers. I think I think it has that effect on everyone's brain. I apologize. I don't like to do that to people, um, but I'm glad you enjoy the show that much. I appreciate that very much. Oh yeah, Tom, as usual, great question. You revealed a method to discover and interpret messages left by Bacon. Based on the increasing numbers of this group's watchers and members, you were onto something, perhaps making others uncomfortable. Yeah, I think so, Tom. And it's not so much. Well, here's the thing. This is something that has always bothered me, and I'm going to share it here with my 31 closest friends that are watching right now live, and then people who watch it after. But something that's always bothered me is that we have multiple experts on Sir Francis Bacon, and people who have been at the tip of the spear of Baconian research, and they all love to have on their websites references to the Rosy Cross. They all have a list of Bacon's signatures, his numbers in simple reverse and case ciphers that you can find in the works of Shakespeare and so on. But they never apply any of the cipher systems. I've never seen any of them use the cipher systems the way Sir Francis Bacon would have. And this just has always boggled my mind. I'm like, why don't people do this? So I started doing it. Um, and yeah, I think that, you know, when all of a sudden you apply it to, to a lot of this information, suddenly things start making sense. I mean, I'm just thinking of the work that John Edwards and William Russell and Jason Mercer have done, just applying some of the stuff that I discovered. Next thing you know, it really are the keys of unlocking a lot of these mysteries, and um, maybe people are feeling uncomfortable with that, perhaps because they've been looking at this stuff for years, and either they've done nothing um, with it or don't know what to do with it. Not really sure. Thank you, Awoken One. Um, one of the things that I do my best is to make sure that we don't buy into silliness. Oh, thanks for posting that in the chat, Sharon. I appreciate you. Yeah, the names of my books. The Ghosts of Bacon, that probably won't be out at least until I would say July or August this summer when I'm on summer break here from working. But it's shaping up pretty well. Jenny, I don't think I'm going to need protecting. I really hope I don't. I don't think anyone's out to get me yet. So. Yeah, Amy. She wrote, I wrote my comments about the examination of methods by scientists and comment to what the Friedmans did in their reports. It was a part of their job. Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that, basically what people have done with the Friedmans is they simply dismiss, two of the greatest minds our country has known when it comes to cryptology. And to simply say, oh, they were wrong, you know, um, the you have Owen and the others were right. They actually did have a cipher. I mean, that's just awful. I mean, that's just silly. It's bad thinking. And frankly, I'm done with it. I'm fed up with it. So that was the source of this evening's show. Great thoughts, gang. Any other thoughts? It looks like we're wrapping up. I don't see any other questions. So coming up right on exactly an hour. How about that? Doesn't get much better than that. So listen, people, thank you so much for watching live. I appreciate you guys turning out every other week here and supporting me and the show and what I'm trying to do here and get this information out. And if you haven't already picked up a copy, the Holy Trinity Decryption, that has the meat and potatoes of everything I've done in it. And someone just mentioned that they enjoyed my Oak Island book. Thank you so much for that. That one's a much shorter read. Thanks, John. Appreciate you very much. I didn't see that you'd popped in, but always appreciate you, my friend. We got to talk soon. I might have something for you. Oh, here we go. See Tom Burns posting. I'm definitely going to put that up. Last thought. Everyone has an angle. Bacon had many, the aspects of which are increasingly difficult to discount. Do the math. Wow. Yeah. That's so true. Tom, as usual, great insight. Tons of angles there for sure, my friend. Oh, thanks, Jan. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you guys very much. So listen, in the meantime, if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel if you can. It helps me kind of push more things out. Oh, thanks, Linda. Really appreciate you too. Thanks for that. So yeah, if you haven't joined our group, the Ghosts of Bacon, make sure you head over there and just pop in. It's just you're try to pop in and there it is. It's real easy. No real approval process or anything like that. No hazing or anything. So listen, gang, until next time, stay safe, be nice to each other, and take care. Thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate you all very much. Have a good night.